Welcome into episode 11 of the Bobcast, the weekly coaches show brought to you by the Frostburg State Office of Athletic Communications. I'm Dan Wallace here with you this week, and we start with a very, very happy DELANE FITZGERALD as his Bobcats are into the NCAA tournament. We'll get into that in just a little bit, but first we start, Coach, with probably the biggest football game in the entire state of Maryland. Actually, it is the biggest football game in the entire state of Maryland, bar none, bar any level. Frostburg State Salisbury this weekend, a hard-fought victory, 14-7. But it took 2 overtimes. It was one heck of a game, but 2 wins in a row against Salisbury. Hard-fought, gritty matchup. Got to be proud of your boys again.
Yeah, not any more proud of them this Monday morning than I am, other Monday mornings. But, yeah, great team effort, a lot of resiliency, stick-to-itiveness. Our kids hung together and played together like they have all season, and we were able to pull one out at the end on Saturday.
14-7, we've seen your team put up a lot more points than that in majority of the games, but the defense was stout as usual, only allowing 7 to Salisbury. What made this game, outside of the fact of it being a massive rivalry, there's always going to be tension, there's always going to be excitement about a big rivalry, what made this game such a difficult matchup?
I think you get the best of Salisbury and you get the best of Frostburg. You know, when you have the Regions Cup, and yeah, it's the biggest sporting event in the state of Maryland each year. You know, the second Saturday in November, and there's a lot of fans there and a lot of alumni and a lot of parents and family. I just think you get the best out of the young men on both sides, and I think that's what makes it tough. Anytime you have a true rivalry, and it's a healthy rivalry, but anytime you have a true rivalry, you can take records and stats and some of those things and throw them out the window because you're going to get everybody's best shot.
And we talked, of course, before that the offense that Salisbury runs makes things a little bit different from week to week. But your defense did an incredible job of shutting them down. How did you prepare to play Salisbury defensively this week, and the execution? What made it so effective?
Our defensive staff has, you don't want to say they've mastered the triple option, but they've mastered the triple option. It's been a long time since we've lost to a triple option team. Going back years, my time as a head coach at Southern Virginia, one year we had 4 or 5 triple option teams. So we went some places in the offseason and learned what to do and what not to do versus a triple option. And we've been able to, and we've been starting the first day of camp. We start instilling things in our players that are going to work versus triple option teams, even though we just play 2 triple options a year, being Southern Virginia and Salisbury. But we're good at it. John Kelly and the defensive staff do a nice job of getting the kids ready to play versus a triple.
At one point in the game, one of the touchdown catches, the first touchdown catch of the game, was a pass from Connor Cox that was tipped a couple times. Sergio Andino came down with it. One-handed grab as he's going to the ground, rolling into the end zone. It's got to be one of the highlights of Division III football this season. It's got to be one of the highlights of college football, period, this season. In your time coaching, have you seen a play, any of your teams, any of the teams that you've played against, that could be better than what Sergio did? That was an unbelievable catch.
This is my 24th year in college football, and of course I played high school and middle school and all that stuff before then. But I probably haven't seen any better. Seen a lot of great plays over the years. Don't know if I've seen any better than that one. Great body control and concentration by Sergio. Anybody listening to this that hadn't seen that play, it's on our website. You need to pull it up and watch it. What do they say? The will is always stronger than the skill. But at that point in time in that play, Sergio's will and skill we're both at a very high level.
Yeah, for anybody who has not seen that, they can go to the website. It is linked to the schedule under the Salisbury game with the box score. You can click that. It'll take you to the YouTube page, or you can go straight to our YouTube page. Just type Frostburg Sports 1 in the search bar, and it should be one of the first highlights up there. You can look for it. Sergio Andino, what an incredible catch, and he's become a breakout player for you guys this season. Not much more to talk about with Salisbury. It was an incredible game. You come away with the Regions Cup for the 2nd consecutive season. We'll see if we can make it a 3rd come 2018. But now we get into the fun stuff. I was in here with you guys yesterday as your team sat here. We're watching the selection show. What kind of excitement, what kind of joy does it bring you to see their reaction? It was, if you haven't seen this either, folks, you can take a look at it. It's been all across our social media pages. the reaction to your team watching themselves be selected as they're going to play Wittenberg on Saturday. It's a little extra football in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, let's go from the start. We took this job February 4th, 2004, and we've been very, very lucky that we've been able to hold most of our coaching staff together, and the core part of our coaching staff has stayed together. The work that those guys have done, Pete Mayer and John Kelling and Ty Hyatt, and there's some people I'm leaving out. Tim Arnold's been with us most of the whole time, and J.R. Lowry as a player and now as a coach, and Alex Baldwin was here as a student assistant, and now he's back coaching, and the work that those coaches have put in the last 4 years is extraordinary, and the joy I get out of watching them happy yesterday and watching them happy this morning is really, really gratifying. To the people in the state of Maryland, the alumni and the fans and the parents that have helped us out recruiting and with logistical issues and this, that, and the other, and all kinds of things that we've been helped out with people over the years. To see their happiness last night when we got accepted was a whole bunch of fun. Our administration and how happy they were, and having the Vice President Tom Bowling with us when the announcement was made last night, and how happy he was. There's the fun in it for me. As the head coach, and I always say this, 24th year, I'm getting ready to be an old coach. Already bald and fat, but getting ready to be an old coach. I go to the next game. So it becomes a next game mentality for me. But for our administration, for our coaching staff, for the people downstate, the parents and the alumni that have helped us with a recruit here and a recruit there and helped us get this done or helped us with fundraising and stuff, really, really gratifying. And I know all that's boring for me to sit and talk about, but watching the joy and the joy that they have brings me joy. Now with our players, who it's really special for me is those 15, 16 seniors that have been with us for 4 years, and I've talked about it probably 3 or 4 straight weeks. They signed with us in 2004, brand new coaching staff that hadn't accomplished anything at Frostburg State yet, and a football program that had been 1-9 the previous year. For them to have belief in us and then to become the players that they've become, really, really, really fun to watch them. I'd like to tell you I'm ecstatic. I expected it. I expect us to win, and I expected us to be in the playoffs when we got here 4 years ago. To watch the joy on their faces in the video that you filmed yesterday, I got to see some things that I didn't get to see live, which was a lot of fun. One of our players, I'll call him out, Wayne Palmer's a good football player for us, linebacker, special teams. Demon does a nice job. Wayne never says a word, never shows any emotion, never does anything. Been with him now for 2.5, 3 years. Never see anything out of him. To see that video of him jumping up and down and celebrating, I was like, "Oh, Wayne's got a pulse." So, but we like Wayne, and yeah, to see Wayne, yeah, very, very gratifying. And congratulations to everybody. Now we need to put it away and go handle our business this week.
Yep. I think the fun thing for me to watch was, there's only so many at-large bids. There's not very many, and as you were going along, you guys were either the 4th or 5th at-large bid that showed up, and each at-large that came across, you could see those boys drop a little bit in their emotions, and then all of a sudden to hear that matchup with Wittenberg.
Yeah, in Division III football, everybody in the country knows if you don't win your conference and win the automatic bid, which we lost to the conference champ in overtime in a 50-50 game that could have gone either way in the fourth quarter or overtime. But we when you get to the at-large portion of the selection process, you know that you're fighting over 4 or 5 spots. And to have our name called as the 4th or 5th at-large, you're right. You're right. The longer that selection show goes and you don't hear your name, the more the mood dampens, and then all of a sudden it's ecstatic in the room.
Let's talk about now that matchup. It's a very, very good one in my opinion, a game that is going to be probably one of the most exciting games of that opening round in the D3 football tournament. You guys head to Wittenberg. What can you tell us about Wittenberg, and how do you prepare?
Wittenberg's won 5 national titles. Frostburg's won none. Wittenberg's been in the tournament 150 times. I'm exaggerating, but Wittenberg's been in the NCAA tournament 20-25 times. Frostburg's been in it now twice. As far as this year's teams go, very, very evenly matched. you'd have to consider us the underdog because we're playing on the road and we're playing 4.5 hours from home. We're in Springfield, Ohio at lunchtime on Saturday. That nice stadium, nice field, nice track around the field. Their stands seem to be fine. At one of those stadiums where all the stands, they seat 3,000 people, but it's on one side, so there's no stands on the visitors' side. Wittenberg has a lot of tradition. Now getting to 2017, I sat last night until well after 1 a.m. watching film. We are evenly matched. Our quarterback's a good player. Their quarterback's a good player. Our tailback has a workmanlike effort. Their tailback has a workmanlike effort. They have 3 or 4 good receivers. We have 3 or 4 good receivers on defense. They play great team defense. We play great team defense, and we're both solid in the kicking game. It's as even as anything that I've seen in recent weeks or in recent years.
Well, the rest of that bracket, just for everybody that wants to hear it, that has not taken a look at it, your quarter of the bracket also consists of Mount Union, Washington and Lee. That's another matchup. Illinois Wesleyan against Case Western, and then Washington and Jefferson against John Hopkins. A win over Wittenberg. You guys would get the winner of Washington and Jefferson against John Hopkins. I know you don't want to talk about the next matchup. Let's focus on Wittenberg this week, and let's go and get a win.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all for having me.
I'm joined now on the Bobcast by head swimming coach Justin Anderson. And we missed you last week, Justin, but don't worry. Your assistant, Becca, she filled in perfectly for you. She did very, very well. This week, you guys, St. Mary's, a very tough meet, a conference meet. 2 close losses, but it seemed like both men and women, the swimmers, they did very well. And we'll touch on them individually, some of them in just a second. But a tough meet for you at St. Mary's, but what do you take away from it in a close loss in which a lot of your swimmers still swam very, very well?
Yeah, it was a great meet for us. I was really happy with the outcome. Obviously, the win-losses weren't where we wanted them to be. But for where we are at this point in the season, after a lot of hard training, to have so many people go so many in-season unrested best times was really exciting to see and bodes really well for what we have coming forward this coming weekend.
And, we're going to talk about them all year long because they're probably the 2 best swimmers in the conference, end of story, both on the men's and women's side. And Christian and Macy both have been off to blazing starts this year. 17 wins overall individually on the year for Christian. Macy 17 for 17 in her individual appearances. These 2 are just incredible athletes. And what makes them so good? I know they have a strong work ethic. They're constantly in the pool. But what to you makes them the competitors that they are at such a high level?
I mean, both of them are just really natural racers. Any situation they get in, they want to go after it and come out on top. So they kind of swim up to the level of the competition when there is competition that can keep up with them there. And this weekend, I think we'll especially see that as they have some big-time drops at our meet at Franklin and Marshall. But they like to get up and race, which is kind of the simplest aspect of swimming is you're trying to get to from one end of the pool to the other before the other person, and that's exciting to them. They like to get out there and do it.
A couple other people that I want to talk about are a couple of your first years. Luke Holloway had a very nice meet. Anthony Giuseppetti had a very good meet as well. These are two athletes that you recruited, you brought in this year. What did you see in them that made you think, oh, these are 2 guys that are going to be very, very good athletes, and they're off to very good starts in their first-year campaign at Frostburg?
Yeah, both Luke and Anthony, one of the things that appealed to them most to me was that they were really raw, talented athletes that hadn't done a lot of training in high school. Both of them were pretty new to year-round swimming. And what's pretty rare in our sport is to go lifetime best times during the dual meet season when you're not rested, when we're training incredibly hard. And Luke's already gone lifetime best in his 200 free by almost 7 seconds. Anthony's been going lifetime best in his backstroke events and IM events. So to have them both be doing that this early in the year is really exciting to see and bodes really well for them going forward and what they can accomplish as we get into our championship season.
The last athlete that I really want to hit on is Maddie Weinberger. I think she may have, so far this season, been your most improved athlete. She was very good last year. Now this year, she's on a stretch where she's won her last 9 individual events, including this week. She took the 200-yard IM, the 100, and the 200-yard backstroke. What kind of growth have you seen from her from last year to now 2017-18 season that you think has made her be such a competitive athlete this year and is now, it looks to be on the top of her game?
Yeah, Maddie's become a lot more consistent for us in meets. She's racing a lot smarter than she has in the past, where you look at the way she splits her races. Instead of going, lightning fast out and dying on the end, she's showing a lot more control of her races as she's pacing them smarter. Her 100 breaststroke, she's still going out with that, lightning quick first half, but she's got the back half endurance to bring it home and isn't, just puttering out at the end there. So I think that's been the biggest difference for her is she's finishing her races a lot better than she did in the past.
This week, you had your last meet before a long break, and we're going to talk about that break for a second too, because that's got to be an interesting caveat in this. 2 months off almost after this next break, but you head to the Franklin and Marshall Invitational, a 3-day, well 2.5 if you want to call it that, invitational that has, you believe you told me, almost 11 teams or so. First off, logistically, that's got to be strange because there's multiple heats. You only have probably 1 or 2 racers maybe in each event. Logistically, how kind of taxing is that over a 3-day span, knowing there's so many teams and your racers are in and out of the pool and they may not be in there as often as they typically are?
Yeah, so the way that this meet's set up, they have a 50-meter pool at Franklin and Marshall, and we obviously don't race the 50-meter course, so we swim the width of the pool, which is 25 yards, and when it's set up that way, there's over 20 lanes available for racing. So they actually split the pool, so men are in one half racing, women are in the other half racing during preliminaries, which speeds up the meet and makes it a little more interesting in terms of juggling because we've only got 3 coaches, and so we obviously can't watch both races or both pools at all times. So we'll go back and forth as we have women in one heat, men in the other. And then finals are all in the same course, which is nice so that we can catch everybody's races at night. It is a taxing lineup for them. Each swimmer is allowed to do up to 3 individual scoring events plus 4 relays for a total of 7 events that count, and then they can do another 2 exhibition events. So our swimmers max are going to be doing 9 races. And then for our swimmers who do well enough in prelims, they'll get to come back in finals. So it is a lot of racing for them over a short period of time, where between those 9 races, if they make it back in all their individual races, they're going to be swimming 11 to 13 times, just depending on how we maximize them in relays, which is a lot over a 3-day period or 2.5-day period. But it's a great opportunity for us because it is a prelims finals format meet. Unlike all our dual meets, it's just like our conference championship. So it's a good prep for us to see where we're at this point in the year when it's going to be just like this when we get to conference championships in a couple months.
With all those teams there, you're going to be seeing a lot of high-level competition. What can you tell us about some of the teams and some of the competitors that you're going to be facing at Franklin and Marshall?
Yeah, it's a really competitive meet. We have D1, D2, and D3 schools there, so our kids are going to be racing some of the top talent on the East Coast. I know University of Delaware and Mount St. Mary's will be there on the D1 level. And then there's a few D2 schools and some high-end D3 schools that send kids to nationals regularly. So it'll be the best competition our kids will see all year, and should really help us to push to having best times and put us at a nice spot as we head into our break for the winter break period.
Now, speaking of that break, you guys take almost 2 months off. The final day of the Franklin and Marshall is November 19th. The first day when you come back is against York on January 20th. It is 2 months off. What do you do to make sure that your athletes are staying well-conditioned and well-prepared to come back from that winter break and be in tip-top form?
Yeah, so it's 2 months off from competition, but it's deceptive in terms of training because we're really we'll have our Franklin and Marshall invite, and then the next week is our Thanksgiving break week. So we won't have any practice for that week, give the kids a chance to recover. And then we come back, and there's really only 2 weeks until final exams, so we'll do our 2 weeks of getting back into really hard, intense training before the semester ends. And then no practice exam week, so the athletes got to go home whenever their last exam's done. And hopefully they'll find a club team, go back home to their old club or high school team, and stay in shape while they're home for winter break. And then we're back on campus the 1st of January, and we start back up our second semester of training. We'll be here on campus for a week, really, pounding out some hard training. And then we actually head to Cocoa Beach, Florida for a winter training trip. And we're there for about another week where we train long course doubles, and it really is the hardest, most intense training of the year, where we're going to put in all the work that's going to pay off when we come to conference championships in February.
So a long time without a competition, but still a lot of work.
Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, we'll be racing every day in practice, so that's how we'll make sure they stay sharp.
Well, Justin, best of luck to both of your teams. Come Saturday, make it Friday actually, Friday evening, and we'll talk to you again next Monday.
Sounds good. Thanks.
I'm joined now on the Bobcast by a man making his Bobcast debut, men's basketball head coach Webb Hatch in here for the first time. And Coach, we're getting ready to start a new season, and let's just start with this. Let's just start with how you feel about the upcoming season. As of now, you guys are going to start this week by heading to Case Western. How do you feel about where your team is at? How ready do you think they are, and what do you think the overall outlook is going into the season, and how well you think your team is going to be able to do?
Well, I think we're ready to play somebody. After a month, they're tired of competing against each other, and they're kind of tired of hearing my voice. We've had a good preseason. We've got 11 players back. I think we'll be as deep at the guard forward position as we've been in probably 10 years. And I think most nights we can play 8 to 10 guys with little or no drop-off as far as talent is concerned. We're going to try to run more this year to use our depth and our athleticism and our quickness. We're going to get after people for 94 feet defensively quite a bit to try to create easy scoring opportunities. We're probably going to try to shoot more threes than we have in the past, and obviously hopefully make more. We're pretty much right now, I think we're set on who our starting lineup is, but we've almost got, again, 8 kids that we can start. So I feel pretty good about this season.
And that's got to be a nice thing for you, too. I'm looking at your roster. 5 kids that you started a majority of the season are back last year, but you mentioned there's eight guys on this team that you could really start when you look at it from top to bottom. I mean, some of the key contributors last year: Greg Gibbs, Chris Costin, Daniel Alexander, Lawrence Pettis Jr., Darren Campbell, Edwin Cole, Dalton Goss. The list goes on and on. Tyler Michael. It's got to be nice coming into a season knowing that there wasn't that much turnover from last year, and all you really did was add to the depth of the team.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Lawrence Pettis will be our starting point guard. He's had a great preseason. He's only a sophomore. He started about 8 games for us last year, I believe, but he was second in the conference in assist. He's extremely quick, left-handed, can shoot the three, has a pull-up jumper, executes the pick and roll very well, and he's also a very good defensive player. So he is, by far our number 1 point guard. And then we've got a freshman, Troy McNeil, and a junior transfer, Desmond Lighty, who will back him up at the point. Probably starting at the 2 and the 3, Daniel Alexander, a sophomore, and Tyler Michael, a senior. Tyler's going to go over 1,000 points in his career, probably within the first 2 to 3 weeks of the season. Daniel had played football and basketball for probably, I guess, since he was 8 or 9 years old, and this summer was the first summer that he didn't have to worry about football, and he's improved dramatically. He's a very good defender and also runs the floor extremely well in transition. So those 2 guys will start at the 2-3, and they're going to be backed up by Chris Costin, who's a great defender, who's a senior, Greg Gibbs, who's a very versatile 6'2" wing, and Jordan Johnson, who's a junior college transfer, came in from Westmoreland Community College and scored 1,000 points in 2 years of playing JUCO ball. So that gives us great depth at that position. Edwin Cole, 6'6", 6'7" junior. I think he had 11 double-doubles last year. He'll be our best inside player. And then Dalton Goss and Darren Campbell will probably play 5 for us. They're not traditional, postmen in that they both can shoot the 3, but they're both 6'5", and they're long and they're athletic and they can run the floor. So those guys, I don't know what that adds up to, but I'm guessing that's about 10 people.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're healthy, I really do think we can get after people and force tempo this year. And we've got some new kids.
Mm-hmm.
We've got some freshmen who have a lot of talent, but they're adjusting to the college game. Athletes are bigger, stronger, faster, quicker. A little more savvy if you've been playing college ball for 2, 3, 4 years. So they're having their issues, but all of our freshmen come in and compete every day. They've been very, very coachable. And in due time, some of them are probably going to get some playing time before the season's over.
Let's talk about those players that you've added. You've already mentioned quite a few of them. You talked about Jordan Johnson coming in from Westmoreland Community College. You talked about Desmond Lighty from Westminster. You bring in one other transfer, Will Clark from McDaniel, and you add 5 first years. Those 8 players that are coming in playing their first year of basketball at Frostburg State, what do you think they add that improves this Frostburg State team?
Well, Marquis Wilkerson and Sean Patterson give us some depth inside. Mm-hmm. They're both 6'5". They're long. They're athletic. They play hard. They can score in the paint. They can also step out and shoot a little bit on the perimeter. So their biggest adjustment is just kind of getting used again to the college game and playing against someone who's a little stronger than they are and a little more athletic than they are. Drake Bowman is a guard. And Tristan Griffith is a guard forward. They both can really shoot the 3. But again, and I keep saying this, they've got to adjust to a higher level of competition. But I think both of them, have bright futures here as far as being able to play college basketball. Let's see if I've left anybody out. Will Clark transferred from McDaniel. Pretty good shooter, versatile player, can play a little bit of point for us if we needed to have him as a backup point guard. Also can play the wing, obviously, as the off guard. Good worker in practice, spends a lot of time in the gym. He's a gym rat. He's in the gym a lot, working on his game on his own. Great kid to coach. Delighted to have him in the program. I think probably the one guy I may have left out was Obadiah Stith, who is a returning player, sophomore, 5'9", 5'10", 2-guard, who's shooting the ball a lot better than he did last year, and is a pretty tenacious defender. So he has a chance to get some playing time, at the 2-guard spot for us.
One more player that I want to focus on particularly, just we watched him absolutely light it up last year, and he's not going to be a secret to anybody in this conference, is Tyler Michael. And what makes it so difficult for other teams? What problems does he bring to opposing defenses that just makes him such a tough player to guard and allows him to score the way he does?
Tyler has a really good game off the dribble. He does not mind getting banged when he goes to the basket. There are some players who kind of shy away from contact. He doesn't mind that at all. And that was probably the biggest improvement from his sophomore to his junior year, was his ability to get to the rim and finish with contact. He didn't shoot the 3 particularly well last year, but he's shooting it much better in practice this year. And he was a second-team all-conference player for us. He's an academic All-American. He didn't shoot free throws particularly well last year, but he's also been shooting them better in practice this year. Mm-hmm. So he's a really coachable kid, hard worker, wants to be as good as he can be, puts a lot of time in the gym on his own, gets up thousands of shots in the off season. So he's just an intense competitor, has a good basketball IQ, very unselfish, but knows when to pick his times to score when we need a bucket. We've got a couple plays that we run that are run specifically for him for him to hopefully get a shot or get to the free throw line.
Let's get into the games now that are coming up this week as you get things underway. And actually, you kind of, in a way, start it tonight. It's an exhibition game, but you head down to Towson to take on that D1 program. What do you really hope to see out of your team in what will be the final tune-up game before the season gets started over the weekend?
Well, they're going to be pretty good. They won 20 games. I think they were 20-13 last year. They just played Old Dominion University Friday night at ODU, and I think it was a 4-point ball game. And ODU's pretty good. So, obviously we're decided underdogs. They're a Division I program. We're in Division III. What you hope is we'll go down there and we will compete and not be intimidated. Now, as any coach, you don't go to a game expecting to lose, but I'm realistic in that for us to be able to compete with a Division I team and possibly win a ball game, a lot of good things have to happen. That other team has to shoot the ball very poorly, and you have to light it up, and your defense has to be outstanding and all that. But I want our guys to compete, to play hard, try to execute our stuff on offense, try to do the things that we want to do defensively, which is, show full court man-to-man pressure, 2-2-1 press, and then we've got a couple of zone defenses that we may show. But it'll be a good test for us. They've got a beautiful facility that's relatively new, I think probably about 5 years old. So it'll be a great opportunity for us. They'll probably have some parents there because we've got a lot of kids, who grew up in Montgomery County, Baltimore County, PG County, Carroll County. And it'll be an easy trip for moms and dads to come and see us play.
One last thing to hit on before we let you go for the week is the tournament over the weekend. You head to Case Western. You play Case Western first, then the other two teams that are there are Montclair State and Greenville. What do you expect to see out of the competition, and what can we expect to see out of your boys, not just against Case Western, but whether it be Montclair State or Greenville in that second game over the weekend?
Good question. We've got limited information on all of them, obviously, because it's the first game for everybody. I know Greenville scored a ton of points last year. I don't know if they led the country in scoring, but they
pretty close.
Yeah, they play a very, very up-tempo style. Now, I think they graduate a lot of kids, so it'll be kind of interesting to see if they're able to do that. We'll obviously see them in Montclair State play on Friday night. Case Western, what little info we have on them, they've got pretty good size, which could cause us some problems because we've got one player with any significant experience, and Edwin Cole, who's 6'6", 6'7". So that worries us a little bit, but we'd like to think that maybe we're going to be a little quicker than them, and our athleticism could cause some problems for them as far as them handling our full court pressure and maybe being able to play with us in a very up-tempo game. But they don't know a whole lot about us either. We're going to do some things similar to what we've done in the past, but we're a different team from what we were last year. So if they're just watching video from last year, we've got some different things that we'll be doing. So.
Well, Coach, best of luck to you tonight. Best of luck to you over the weekend. Hopefully we're talking to you again next Monday after a tournament win up at Case Western.
Thanks.
Back on the Bobcast and joined now by another coach making her Bobcast debut today, CARRIE Saunders, the head women's basketball coach here at Frostburg State. And, Coach, a little bit of transition for you this year. You lose two seniors who had a pretty significant impact on your program in Cache Fields and Kirsten Rayner, but overall your team stays pretty solid as a whole, and there's not that much difference. You bring in quite a few players. Going into this season early on, you haven't played an actual competitive game yet. What is your outlook for this team, and what do you hope to see? What do you think that we can expect from this team in the 2017-2018 season?
Well, our team obviously last year made huge strides in the CAC, and what we're looking for is to continue to make that stride. Our girls are very hungry, very ready. We have our preseason meetings, and all they talk about is being in the top of the CAC, if not winning the CAC. And that's something that we can continue to do and continue to surprise the CAC. It's a surprise to them, but for us, we know what we have heading into this season, and we feel very, very comfortable and confident as long as we can maintain our focus throughout the year, and taking every game one at a time and not looking ahead to the CAC before we get through these first few games.
Now, you don't replace production that is left behind from players that lost, but you can, in a way, try to fill those roles. Of course, Kirsten Rayner was one of the leading scorers in the CAC and one of the leading rebounders. Cache Fields did a fantastic job for you for majority of the season running the point. Where do you look to get those voids that are being left filled? I know you have a couple players that can fill those post players from last year. Where do you look to get that production?
Well, Cache and Kirsten brought a lot to our roster last year. In terms of, Cache did a great job distributing the ball, and Kirsten obviously did what you said, is rebounding and a leading scorer. But the thing that we'll miss the most out of them is their leadership. And for us looking ahead, we're still finding that leadership and those voices on our team. But as far as filling their role, our girls, returners and newcomers are really doing a good job of fighting for spots, and that's something that we've become really competitive with in practice is no one's spot is safe. And so we've recruited, and we've got some bigger, taller girls on our roster this year, so we can hopefully not lose the rebounding margin as much as what Kirsten brought for us, but and then also from a guard position, we're fast, we're scrappy, and in a way we're becoming quicker with the people that we've brought in. So filling those roles, it won't be necessarily a difficult thing to do, because our girls are a little veteran. We've got some upperclassmen that are really stepping into those roles, and even some that didn't get a lot of time last year are really stepping forward.
You have about 9 returners on this roster from last season, and let's start with the guards. And to me, I believe that you have one of the best guards in the CAC, and a player that I have said I don't believe she'd be at this D3 level if she wasn't small. She's just a small player, and I think she's gotten overlooked at times because of her size, and that's Victoria Diggs. She's one of the best shooters in this conference, bar none, maybe one of the best shooters in the country at the D3 level. What makes it so hard for other teams to deal with her?
The thing that sets Tori apart from everyone is her intelligence. Her basketball IQ is unbelievable. I constantly watch opponents try and guard her in different ways by putting a bigger guard on her, a smaller guard on her, handling ball screens differently. She's just so intelligent that she will expose you no matter what you do to her. If you go under a screen, she's going to stop and pop. If you go over, she's quick enough to go around. And the thing that sets her apart also is her footwork. She knows when a shot's good right when it leaves her hand. And her footwork is it's that of a higher caliber kid. And so I too believe that she's definitely a hidden gem that we have, and she will continue to be that way, and she's going to continue to get better. She had a great season last year, but she's pushing herself to even have a better season, and that's something that you definitely want from a kid like that.
When you look at the post position, and there's 2 players that I want to hit on that you and I talked about last year, and we saw the improvement from them. It was astronomical from the beginning of the season to the end of the season. That's Amanda Emery and Sydney Stotler, 2 girls that I have to think are going to play key roles in whatever your team is going to do this year. And I'm very excited to see what they've done from last year to this year, because they look to me like they have potential to be very, very good players in their 4 years here at Frostburg.
Yeah, and that's, when we recruited them as freshmen, we kind of told them they're paving the way for post players, especially with their size. We got taller. But even this year we got a little bit taller, so they're going to have to fight for their time. But they're both doing well. Sydney's just that type of kid that you're going to get the same Sydney every single day, and that consistency will take her a long way. But she's also striving to get better. And Amanda as well. She's got so much upside that we just got to pull out of her every day. But we've got some newcomers as well that are fighting for those positions. So it's definitely an exciting time.
And let's talk about those newcomers for a minute. You have 6 kids that are listed as first years, 1 transfer that has come in Crystal Tobrian. What are this collective, these 7 girls that have come in, these newcomers to this roster? I know you want them to push the players who have already been here to be better than they were, but what do they bring as a collective to this 2017-2018 women's basketball team?
They bring an excitement. We're getting to the point where we're becoming kind of veteran, which is the first time that we've kind of been that way since I've taken over this program. But still, when I go out and I recruit you to want to play right away, and I recruit you to want to go and take someone's position, because that's what brings competitiveness to our roster, and that's what makes us so deep. And that's something that I'm looking forward to this season is to be a little bit deeper and go into our bench and not having to play, those top 5-6 kids for 40 minutes a game. So that's what I'm most excited about. They're coming along really, really well. They're working hard every single day in practice. But the biggest transition for them is to be able to keep up with the pace and the expectations of what I have for them, and continue to grow. Most of these kids were pretty good for their high school programs, and you come into a program and you're not necessarily the best anymore. You're a part of a team, and you've got to work together. And so that transition for them has been a successful one so far. So I'm excited to see what they bring to our team.
And let's dive into the opening of this schedule. You start this year on Wednesday. Things kick off with Mount Aloysius, a Mount Aloysius team that you saw last year, a Mount Aloysius team that got the better of you, an 87-69 loss. I think your team has made some big strides forward since then. What do you hope to see out of your girls Wednesday night, and what can you expect to see out of an Aloysius team coming to Bobcat Arena?
Well, I'm hoping that my team is wanting a little revenge. They got the best of us last year, and we're a completely different team than what we were. We were a completely different team even after Christmas than when we faced them. So I'm hoping that our team's ready to go. It's our season opener. But I'm expecting Mount Aloysius to have that in their memory from last year. They came, or we came there, and they beat us, and they beat us pretty well. So they've got a little confidence in them, and so it's going to be a hard-fought game. But I'm hoping that tipping off in our arena, and having that taste in our mouth from last year, that we're going to come ready to play.
Then over the weekend, it's the annual Jim Crawley Invitational Tournament. Two of the teams the same from last year. Pitt Bradford coming back, Rutgers Camden coming back. The newcomer you get right off the bat on Friday night in Bethany. Let's start with that game first. What do you expect to see out of Bethany, and what kind of test will that be for your girls?
Bethany's a good program. They were 12-14 last year and 10-8 in their conference. This is not a team that we can take lightly. Our goal this year is to win our tournament. We fell short last year, and we have a team that can definitely win our own tournament on our own floor. But Bethany's going to be ready to play. They're a somewhat young team, but those young teams are fearless, and they're very well coached. And so we've got to be ready to play on Friday night. We can't take anyone lightly. That's for sure. We're not there yet. Every game is going to be a hard-fought game from start to finish. So I'm hoping that our experience, our returners are going to be cool and comfortable in this type of situation. We've got a lot of games this week. We're starting off with 3 in 1 week in the opening weekend, so we've just got to be ready to play, and everyone's got to be ready to go when their number's called.
And then those last 2 teams, Rutgers Camden, Pitt Bradford, 2 teams that were here last season, 2 teams that you know very well from playing Rutgers Camden and from watching Pitt Bradford in 2 games. How do you feel you match up with whoever were to win or lose that game on Friday, depending on how the results go? How do you feel you would match up with either one of those teams? And immediately, right off the bat, you talked about that depth. It's going to get tested in 2 days right off the bat.
Yeah, and that's one of the biggest things for us is that depth. I think whether we face Rutgers Camden or Pitt Bradford, we're again in for a game. Rutgers Camden is always a team that's well coached and fundamental and knows what to do when situations occur. And so we have to be ready to handle that. We go on a run, they're going to counter. And same thing with Pitt Bradford. They're a little bit scrappier team, but we've just got to be ready to go. It's about us, and it's about doing what we're supposed to do on the offense and defensive side of the floor. And if we stick to what we know and what we're good at, then we shouldn't have any issues.
Well, Carrie, thanks for joining us. Best of luck to you this week, and hopefully we're talking to you next Monday after 3 wins to open the season.
That sounds great. Thank you.